Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and we're back again for a Falcon and the Winter Soldier review. I do these every week, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss them. Check out last week's review, and let's just jump into this one. Episode 2, The Star-Spangled Kid, which I think DC can technically sue because they have a superhero called Star-Spangled Kid, but that's besides the point. Today I'm gonna try something a little different. Instead of doing kind of like a summary of the plot and kind of going through it, and this time I'm just gonna kind of pick and choose what's going on. So I guess we can start a little bit chronologically though, and talk about John Walker, who's introduced in the first scene. And I saw a lot of hate for John Walker on Twitter, of people saying, "Oh yeah, I liked him at first, but now he's horrible," or maybe he's nice now, but just wait until later, or just straight up saying they don't like him. And while I totally get it, from like at the end of last episode, this episode he seems like a legit like cool dude. I mean, he says a couple things that kind of are supposed to get on the nerves of the viewer, but personally I don't really mind it too much. I think it was all right. I don't know. It wasn't the worst thing that could have possibly happened with the character. I think he kind of went out there and he was honest and upfront about the fact that he's not Steve Rogers, but at the same time he's doing his best. He's clearly qualified for the job because he is basically at peak physical condition for a human, essentially. So they were basically like, okay, well, we don't have super soldier serum because, that was made in the 40s, and the last time we tried to make it, we made the Hulk. So let's just try and find somebody who can kind of be Captain America without it, and they found John Walker. So he's very qualified. He does obviously say a few things that just are more on the side of it came out wrong than I hate you when he talks to Sam and Bucky. Obviously, it's understandable for their characters to not really like John that much. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if we do find out he has some other motivations and that he's not all that he seems. Of course, this does give me flashbacks to WandaVision, talking about how, like, he could be the secret villain with secret motivations to hurt the heroes and all this stuff. But, that it is a possibility that later on he will become somewhat of a villain. And also this episode, just in general, okay, first of all, he really is more, at the beginning at least, a tool for bringing Bucky and Sam together, which is an interesting way of going about things, because last episode they didn't even really interact at all except for a text message. So this episode they're brought together by the fact that John Walker is the new Captain America, and he does definitely take on how Captain America was in the 40s, in having that a lot of his stuff, especially right at the beginning, was showbiz stuff of performing for people and creating that public image rather than actually helping people. Though clearly he does help people eventually, which is a good thing. So, yeah, and also something interesting, he does use a gun, which a lot of people are like, Captain America doesn't use a gun, when I'm pretty sure he did in the 40s, but besides the point, that could be a reference, actually, and if it is, it's a very clever reference. Basically, back in the 40s, they actually made a film serial, which is basically, it wasn't a feature film of 1 hour and a half to 2 hour long movie. It was 15 chapters that were all 15 to 30 minutes length each. And they cost less to see each chapter, obviously, but it was like 3.5 hours worth of content, and a lot of superheroes were prime material for film serials back in the 40s and early 50s, and Captain America actually had one in 1944, but apparently the people behind that didn't really know the character that much. Marvel wasn't really that involved, though obviously they were timely comics at the time, and so it wasn't really true to the character, and he did actually like just carry around a gun and shoot people. So since that wasn't really Captain America, at least within like how we know the character, maybe that's a subtle reference that John Walker isn't really Captain America himself. Though maybe I'm going too far into that. But I realize this whole episode is really focused a lot on the serum. Obviously, John Walker is serumless, as I talked about. And then there's Isaiah Bradley, who's this really interesting addition to the lore of the MCU. Sorry, I'm so used to talking about the DCEU this week with everything going on. I accidentally said DCEU, but I mean MCU. He was someone from the comics, and it's pretty much exactly like how he was in the comics. There are some things that aren't mentioned that maybe will get brought up later, but essentially he was tested on decades ago and made a super soldier, and that's really interesting. I hope they do even more with him, or at least the concept of him and how that affects the world around them in the future, and I think that's going to be something really cool. And then we also got the Flag Smashers, who have the super soldier serum, and they're and obviously the big mystery is, how did they get it? And maybe it's something like U.S. agent is in league with them because he thinks that if he gets the super soldier serum, he'll be Captain America like Steve was. Or maybe he's like an inside man feeding them information on how to make the super soldier serum, or something like that. Now, something interesting to talk about is the Flag Smashers and their politics and how it relates to Sam and Bucky, particularly Sam, because the Flag Smashers are this anarchist group. People keep saying, oh, they want to make the world how it was during the blip. That's not exactly it. I think it's more during the pre-blip, which the blip is technically when everybody came back, not when they disappeared. I mean, like, during that 5-year space, apparently everybody was united as a people, in a way a lot like how people were, or at least how people perceived the world to be early on in COVID, of like everybody come together and being like, we're all in this together, or at least that's what freaking tissue brands want you to think, so that they can sell you tissues. That was weird, right? I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but like every company was having a commercial being like, we're all in this together and it's a tough time, which is why you need to buy a Lexus. It was so weird. But anyway, it kind of reminds me of that, and they basically think that that government just is something that divides us, and that they should go in an anarchist direction for the world, so that we can all be together as a people, which does make sense to a point. And I think it's important that the villains do have motivations that the audience can connect to and in a way agree with, and it's also interesting because Sam and Bucky have to fight for this U.S. government and against these anarchists, and tell them that anarchy is wrong, when at the same time the government has screwed both of them over multiple times. Obviously Bucky was a criminal from the U.S. for a long time. They were both on the run for like a year or two, so it was so there's that. But also, more particularly, Sam has a lot of things against the system of the United States, in that, last episode he couldn't even get a simple loan, and this episode he almost got arrested just for being like a black guy on the street, which was a really great thing to loop in, and that was almost prophetic, because that was probably in there before the Black Lives Matter stuff that happened last year. Not that that didn't happen beforehand, just that it became more relevant because of the Black Lives Matter protests last year with George Floyd. But anyway, it's kind of this great character motivation for Sam, where he is in this situation where he's saved the world multiple times, and yet the government isn't giving him these simple things. And at the same time, they're also giving him grief about investigating this mission. He's already having trouble tied up with the government just in this series. And then at the same time, he's supposed to preach what the U.S. government says and tell these anarchists that they're wrong, which I think is a really interesting thing. And then obviously, to cap off the episode, right at the end, we got to see some Zemo, which how he fits into this, we don't really know. Maybe he's the secret leader of the Flag Smashers. Maybe he'll just join them. Maybe, he'll just be in there for a little bit and not do a whole lot. Who knows? But yeah, that's we're a third of the way through Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's looking great so far. Obviously, I feel like if you watch a third of a Marvel movie, almost any Marvel movie, you can then go, oh, this is going to be a really good movie. And then maybe you watch the rest of it and then it's bad. But at the same time, I'm optimistic. I really think this series is going to be really good. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe for daily videos on the franchises you love, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.